Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Pirate Prepper here. I like to take a few minutes and look at old tech versus newfangled stuff. And this is one of those across the board kind of items. And when you look at certain items, technology can be a tremendous boon. Computers, cell phones, medications. Looking at the technology change over the years, in the last 100 years, in the last 200 years, it's astounding to see where we've come. Footwear alone is amazing what has happened in 50, 60, 70 years. And where the old styles have just been improved to no end. The quality also can improve. So don't dismiss change and improvements across the board. In other places, technology sometimes it's not needed. Change sometimes isn't for the better, depending on what you're trying to do, what your needs are, and what you like. So, for example, knives, pocket knives. Your Swiss Army knife has been around for a lot of years now. I think you look at when Victorinox came out with their first one, it's been a long time. And realistically, they haven't changed much since that day. Adding a few tools here and there, a few other dozens and dozens of models, but the basic knife itself hasn't really changed. You've still got a blade or two, a few tools, knife blade, a couple screwdrivers, sometimes a corkscrew, sometimes a Phillips screwdriver, but the basic size and principles remain the same. The quality is actually improved. So certain things don't need improving, or if they do, there is a definite improvement. Your 1911 pistol, for example. Minor differences from the original 1911, 1912, 1913 vintage guns, and in a lot of cases, the improvements are more in the line of like hardening of the metal, better quality metals, or tolerances. The wartime guns were horrific for tolerances, but they ran. But looking at it from a realistic standpoint, the gun itself has remained remarkably unchanged since 1911 or 1927, depending which version you're talking about. The basic improvements have been in either cosmetics or individual fit. What I mean by that is better grips, longer or shorter trigger, better sights. But the same basic gun has been made for 110 years, give or take, for the public. And for something to be around that long, it's astounding. To be as revered and loved and accepted after 110 years is astounding. Again, realize that's back when horse and buggies were around, when the early Fords, the Stanley Steamer, cars we wouldn't even consider as cars today, but curios, and the design is still going. So certain things I won't say don't need improving. They can be improved, but do they need it at times? Maybe, maybe not. But to compare a 1911 pistol to, say, a Glock. The Glock is lighter, handles abuse now a lot better, doesn't rust unless you really abuse it, holds a lot more ammo, and is a lot more practical, simple, but it's bloody ugly. There's no way around that. They're both good. They both do the same thing, just different ways. And depending on what your preferences are, they can both be excellent choices. If you like old school and vintage, the Colt is fine. It still works today. Including those first early models. They'll still work today. I wouldn't run them hard, but that's me. But looking at it from the standpoint of what do you need? What is best for you? In a lot of cases, it doesn't really matter what you pick. Some people complain about revolvers being antiquated, old and slow. Well, for the first 5 or 6, there's not a lot of difference. Now, they reload slow, yeah, unless you're Jerry Michalik, in which case, hey, Jerry, damn. But for the majority of people, if you look at statistics, it doesn't really matter what you use. 9mm, 45, 38, 44 Magnum. It really doesn't matter. The first key is to have something and know how to use what you have. When I was teaching classes, the best thing I could see was some old guy showing up, old lady too, showing up with something that's where the bluing is well worn, that they've used for the last 10, 15, 20 years. Even the grandpa passed down, and they learned how to shoot on it. Something they knew how to use versus something fresh out of the box with all the factory oil dripping off of it that's never been shot before. I'll take the old gun first. It's probably going to run. But looking at a lot of different things, all things being equal, the difference between, again, a 1911 Glock in a real situation, not a lot. The difference between an AR-15 and an M1 Garand, not a lot. Capacity, weight. One you can actually hunt with in a lot of places. The other, not so much. But they all do the same thing. They're all viable defense, survival, and fun options. It's fun to take a Garand out and shoot bottles with it, and shoot groups with it. Sure, it's fun taking an AR-15 out, do the same thing. And around here we'd hunt with them. We're allowed. But is one truly better than the other? Depends on the situation. I can easily outline a situation where the Garand beats the M1 or AR-15 hands down. I can do the same thing the opposite way, where the AR beats the Garand. So a lot of people make a lot of fuss about banning this, banning that. Realistically, there's not a lot of difference. That old wood-stocked World War II vintage rifle, it's nothing to be sneezed at. Those old World War I bolt-action rifles that became the basis for the sporting rifles, the hunting rifles, for the last 100+ years. Nothing to be sneezed at. No, they're not as efficient. Time and motion studies, that sort of thing. But they still work. And as long as you have something, you can make do till you can get better, if you want better. Or something more appropriate, if we want to look at it in a more realistic viewpoint. So, don't discount the older guns. Don't discount the older styles. That Colt single action army that John Wayne carried and used in all those westerns over the years. Those were designed as a fighting gun. People forget that nowadays in the days of plastic and polymer and high capacity. You can still fight with them. But you got to know what you're doing. You have to practice. So, take a look around. Look what you got. Look what you need. Make your decisions and go from there. Whatever you do, do something. Pipe Ripper out.